Welcome friends. Now we are presenting a beautiful story, Shoemaker and the Devil. So let's start the story. It was Christmas Eve. Mary had long been snoring on the stove. All the paraffin in the little lamp had burnt out. But Fedor Nilov still sat at work. He would long ago have flung aside his work and gone out into the street. But a customer from Colony Lane, who had a fortnight before ordered some boots, had been in the previous day, had abused him rudely, and had ordered him to finish the boots at once before the morning service. It's convict life, Fedor grumbled as he worked. Some people have been asleep long ago. Others are enjoying themselves, while you sit here like some Cain and sew for the devil knows whom. To save himself from accidentally falling asleep, he kept taking a bottle from under the table and drinking out of it, and after every pull at it, he twisted his head and said aloud, "What is the reason? Kindly tell me. That customers enjoy themselves while I am forced to sit and work for them because they have money and I am a beggar." He hated all his customers, especially the one who lived in Colony Lane. He was a gentleman of gloomy appearance, with long hair, a yellow face, blue spectacles, and a huge voice. He had a German name which one could not pronounce. It was impossible to tell what was his calling and what he did when a fortnight before Fedor had gone to take his measure. He, the customer, was sitting on the floor pounding something in a mortar. Before Fedor had time to say good morning, the content of the mortar suddenly flared up and burned with a bright red flame. There was a sting of sulphur and burnt wither, and the room was filled with a thick pink smoke, so that Fedor sneezed 5 times, and as he returned home afterward, he thought anyone who feared God would not have anything to do with things like that. When there was nothing left in the bottle, Fedor put the boots on the table and sank into thought. He leaned his heavy head on his fist and began thinking of his poverty, of his hard life with no glimmer of light in it. Then he thought of the rich, of their big houses and their carriages, of their 100 ruble notes. How nice it would be if the house of these rich men, the devil flapped them, were smashed, if their horses died, if their fur coat and sable caps got stubby. How splendid it would be if the rich, little by little, changed into beggars having nothing, and he, a poor shoemaker, were to become rich and were to lord it over some other poor shoemaker on Christmas Eve. Dreaming like this, Fedor suddenly thought of his work and opened his eyes. Years ago, he thought, looked at the boots. The job has been finished ever so long ago, and I go on sitting here. I must take the boots to the gentleman. He wrapped up the work in a red handkerchief, put on his things, and went out into the street. A fine hard snow was falling, pricking the face as though with needles. It was cold, slippery, dark, the gas lamp burned dimly, and for some reason there was a smell of paraffin in the street, so that Fedor coughed and cleared his throat. Rich men were driving to and fro on the road, and every rich man had a ham and a bottle of vodka in hand. Rich young ladies peeped at Fedor out of the carriage, and sledges put out their tongues and shouted, laughing, "Beggar, beggar!" Student, officer, and merchants walking behind Fedor, jeering at him and crying, "Drunkard, drunkard, infidel, cobber, soul of a bootleg beggar." All this was insulting, but Fedor held his tongue and only spat in disgust. But when Kuzma from Warsaw a master bootmaker, met him and said, I have married a rich woman and I have men working under me, while you are a beggar and have nothing to eat. Feder could not refrain from running after him. He pursued him till he found himself in Colony Lane. His customer lived in the fourth house from the corner of the very top floor. To reach him, one had to go through a long, dark courtyard and then to climb up a very high, slippery staircase which tottered under one's feet. When Feder went into him, he was sitting on the floor pounding something in a mortar, just as he had been the fortnight before. Your Honor, I have brought your boots, said Feder slowly. The customer got up and began trying on the boots in silence. Desiring to help him, Feder went down on one knee and pulled off his old boot, but at once jumped up and strode towards the door in horror. The customer had not a foot, but a hoof like a horse's. Aha, thought Feder, years ago. The first thing should have been to cross himself, then to leave everything and run downstairs. But he immediately reflected that he was meeting a devil for the first and probably the last time, and not to take advantage of his services would be foolish. He controlled himself and determined to try his luck. Clasping his hands behind him to avoid making the sign of the cross, he cupped respectfully and began. They say that there is nothing on earth more evil and impure than the devil, but I am of the opinion, Your Honor, that the devil is highly educated. He has excused my saying it, hopes and a tail behind, but he was more brains than many a student. I like you more what you say, said the devil, flattered. Thank you, shoemaker, what do you want? And without loss of time, the shoemaker began complaining of his lot. He began by saying that from his childhood up he had envied the rich. He had always resented it that all people did not live alike in big houses and drive with good horses. Why, he asked, was he poor? How was he worse than Kuzma from Warsaw, who had his own house and whose wife wore a hat? He had the same sort of nose, the same hands, feet, head and back as the rich, and so why was he forced to work when others were enjoying themselves? Why he married to Maria and not to a lady smelling of scent? He had often seen beautiful young ladies in the houses of rich customers, but they either took a notice of his whatever, or else something laughed and whispered to each other. What a red nose that shoemaker has! It was true that Maria was a good, kind, hard-working woman, but she was not educated. Her hand was heavy and hit hard, and if one had occasion to speak of politics of anything intellectually before her, she would put her spoke in and talk the most awful nonsense. What do you want? Then his customer interrupted him. I beg you, Your Honor, Satan, in which to be graciously pleased to make me a rich man. Certainly, only for that you must give me up your soul. Before the cocks crow, go and sign on this paper here that you give me up your soul. Your Honor, said Feder politely, when you ordered a pair of boots from me, I did not ask for the money in advance. One has first to carry out the order and then ask for payment. Oh, very well, the customer assented. A bright flame suddenly flared up in the mortar. A pink thick smoke came puffing out, and there was a smell of burnt feather and sulphur. When the smoke had subsided, Feder rubbed his eyes and saw that he was no longer Feder, no longer a shoemaker, but quite a different man, wearing a waistcoat and a watch chain, in a new pair of trousers, and that he was sitting in an armchair at big table. 2 foot men were handing him dishes. bowing low and saying, "Kindly eat, your honor, and may it do you good." "What wealth!" The footman handed him a big piece of roast mutton and dish of cucumbers, and then brought in a frying pan a roast goose, and a little afterward boiled pork with horseradish cream. And how dignified, how gently it all was. Feder ate, and before each dish drank a big glass of excellent vodka, like some general or some count. After the pork he was handed some boiled grain moistened with goose fat, then an omelette with bacon fat, then fried liver, and he went on eating and was delighted. What more, they served too a pie with onion and steamed turnip with cause. How is it the gentry don't burst with such meals? He thought. In conclusion, they handed him a big pot of honey. After dinner, the devil appeared in blue spectacles and asked with a low bow, "Are you satisfied with your dinner, Feder?" But Feder could not answer one word. He was so stuffed after his dinner. The feeling of repletion was unpleasant overseas, and to distract his thought, he looked at the boot on his left foot. For a boot like that, I used not to take less than 7.5 rubles. "What shoemaker made it?" he asked. "Kuzma," answered the footman. "Send for me the fool." Kuzma from Warsaw soon made his appearance. He stopped in a respectful attitude at the door and asked, "What are your order, your honor?" "Hold your tongue," cried Feder, and stamped his foot. "Don't dare to argue. Remember your place as a cobbler, blockhead. You don't know how to make boots. I will beat your ugly pinch to a jelly. Why have you come?" "For money." "What money?" "Be off. Come on Saturday." Boy give him a cuff. But he at once recalled what a life the customer used to lead him to, and he felt heavy at heart. And to distract his attention, he took a fat pocket book out of his pocket and began counting his money. There was a great deal of money, but Feder wanted more still. The devil in the blue spectacles brought him another notebook, fatter still, but he wanted even more, and the more he counted it, the more discontented he became. In the evening, the evil one brought him a full-bosomed lady in a red dress, and said that this was his new wife. He spent the whole evening kissing her and eating gingerbreads, and at night he went to bed on a soft, downy feather bed, turned from side to side, and could not go to sleep. He felt uncanny. "We have a great deal of money," he said to his wife. "We must look out, of thieves will be breaking in. You had better go and look with a candle." He did not sleep at night, and kept getting up to see if his box was all right. In the morning he had to go to church to matins. In church, the same honor is done to rich and poor alike. When Feder was poor, he used to pray in church like this: "God forgive me, a sinner." He said the same thing now, though he had become rich. What difference was there? And after death, Feder rich would not be buried in gold, not in diamond, but in the same black earth as the poorest beggar. Feder would burn in the same fire as a cobbler. Feder resisted all this, and too he felt weighed down all over by his dinner, and instead of prayer he had all sorts of thoughts in his head about his box of money, about thieves, about his battered, ruined soul. He came out of church in a bad temper to drive away his unpleasant thoughts, as he had often done before. He struck up a song at the top of his voice, but as soon as he began, a policeman ran up and said, with his fingers to the peak of his cap, "Your honor, gentlefolk must not sing in the street. You are not a shoemaker." Feder leaned his back against a fence, and fell to thinking. What could he do to amuse himself? Your Honor, a porter shouted to him. Don't lean against the fence, you will spoil your fur coat. Feder went into a shop and bought himself the very best concertina, then went out into the street playing it. Everybody pointed at him and laughed, and a gentleman too. The cabman jeered at him like some cobbler. Is it the proper thing for gentlefolk to be disorderly in the street? A policeman said to him, You had better go to a tavern. Your Honor, give us a trifle, for Christ's sake. The beggar wailed, surrounding Feder on all sides. In earlier days, when he was a shoemaker, the beggar took no notice of him. Now they wouldn't let him pass. And at home, his new wife, the lady, was waiting for him, dressed in a green blouse and red skirt. He meant to be attentive to her, and had just lifted his arms to give her a good clout on the back. But she said angrily, Peasant, ignorant, lout. You don't know how to behave with ladies. If you love me, will kiss my hand. I don't allow you to beat me. This is a pleasant existence, thought Feder. People do lead a life. You must not sing. You must not play the concertina. You must not have a lark with a lady. Foo! He had no sooner sat down to tea with the lady when the evil spirit in the blue spectacles appeared and said, Come, Feder Pantelish, I have performed my part of the bargain. Now sign your paper and come along with me. And he dragged Feder to hell, straight to the fireplace, and devils flew up from all directions and shouted, Fool, blockhead as. There was a fearful smell of paraffin in hell, enough to suffocate one, and suddenly it all vanished. Feder opened his eyes and saw his table, the boots, and the tin lamp. The lamp glass was black, and from the faint light on the wick came clouds of stinking smoke as from a chimney. Near the table stood the customers in the blue spectacles, shouting angrily, Fool, blockhead as. I will give you a lesson, you scoundrel. You took the order a fortnight ago and the boots are not ready yet. Do you suppose I want to come traipsing round here half a dozen times a day for my boots? You wretch, you Bert. Feder shook his head and set to work on the boots. The customer bent on, swearing and threatening him for a long time. At last, when he subsided, Feder asked slowly, And what is your occupation, sir? I make Bengal lights and fireworks. I am protechnician. They began ringing for matin. Feder gave the customers the boots, took the money for them, and went to church. Carriages and slanders with bearskin rugs were dashing to and fro in the street. Merchants, ladies, officers were walking along the pavement together with the humbler folk. But Feder did not envy them nor repine at his lot. It seemed to him now that rich and poor were equally badly off. Some were able to drive in a carriage, and others to sing songs at the top of their voice and to play the concertina. But one and the same thing, the same grave, was awaiting all alike, and there was nothing in life for which one would give the devil even a tiny scrap of one's soul. That's it. Thank you.